Good morning, students. Let's start our third seminar. Please make sure that your phones are in silent mode. Okay. So today we will talk about the international trade. Yes, international trade issues. So in the lecture we have talked about the beauty or the good side of international trade, and we have witnessed that international trade is always good, unless it causes some disputes and some externalities, okay, negative ones. So today we have discussions that we have to do together, and we have some very important exercises that we have to solve together as well. Okay, good. So our time is limited, so let's keep for today the news discussion. If you have any short one, it's okay. If you don't, we will skip. Okay. When should countries trade? It's the first question. When should countries trade with one another? Why do people trade? Okay. So in case of people, individual trading, because they are better off. Yes? They benefit, there is mutual interest and mutual benefit from the trade, so they trade. In terms of nations, as she mentioned, if they have that comparative advantage, then they have to trade. Okay? So over the years, because we are living in the 21st century, right? So our grandparents, they used to also trade, but their view of trading was different. Okay? It was different from us. Okay? Good. For example, it was about mercantilism. I think you have heard mercantilist view. What was their strategy for trading? So they based on their thinking, they thought about the trade. So the country, they all should only export. Okay? So which means that those countries who export, they gain. Doesn't matter whether that country has or doesn't have that absolute advantage or comparative advantage, that country must trade, according to mercantilistic view. Okay? So we know that after a few years that Adam Smith, right, he introduced that the law of absolute advantage. What is absolute advantage?
More than others in the same resources.
Right. So the ability to produce more goods and services, right, by using less resources, or producing more using the same resources. Okay. Those inputs. Yes. Okay. So it was Adam Smith. So according to him, countries, they should trade based on their absolute advantages, right? Absolute advantages. And during the lecture, we made sure, and we saw the example that there are some countries who have only absolute advantages, but there are some other countries who do not have any absolute advantage, right? Which means that according to Adam Smith, nations, they don't have to trade with those nations with which they don't have absolute advantage, right? Okay. So later on, David Ricardo, he came up with another law of comparative advantage. What is comparative advantage? Okay, the ability to produce with low opportunity cost. Producing the same good with low opportunity cost. And we witnessed that countries may have absolute advantage in 2, 3, 4 goods, or even more, but they can never have comparative advantage in terms of everything. Okay? For example, the case of Uzbekistan and, let's say, Japan. They are car industry and, let's say, computer manufacturing industry. Our GM in Uzbekistan, we also produce cars, and our Intel, let's say, they're producing computers, right? Who has absolute advantage? Japanese, they are world leader, okay, there is no doubt. We don't have absolute advantage at all. But if you look at the data, our data and their data, in terms of production, and if you calculate comparative advantage for both countries, you will figure out that maybe Uzbekistan has comparative advantage in terms of production of computers or cars. Okay? Japan has only one, while Uzbek has the other. So that way, that David Ricardo told us, trade is always good. It will increase nations' wealth. Okay? Good. So now the exercise number 1, we will use the same exercise, but we have some other discussions too in addition, okay? The ones who were not paying very close attention during the lecture now pay attention very closely because it's very important exercise, okay? So now we are considering 2 countries, right? If there is no seat available, you can move mine.
You can sit here.
Is there a seat available? Huh? Yeah, you can pick up my mic. It's fine. So now we have data given for 2 countries, right? Korea and Japan. So now, and we are considering 2 types of goods, cars and computers, which are produced in both countries. And time spent for production 1 unit of car and 1 unit of computer. So now, Koreans spend 60 minutes to produce 1 car. If they are working for 8 hours, in 1 day they are able to produce 8 cars. 15 minutes for 1 computer, which means in 8 hours they are able to produce 32 cars. In terms of Japan, to produce 1 car, they only spend 20 minutes. So which means in 1 hour they are able to produce 3, in 8 hours, 24 cars. In terms of computer manufacturing, again, 10 minutes, which means in 1 hour 6, in 8 hours, 48 cars. We have only this data, okay? So using this data, I can prepare, many questions. So that which you have to do using this data. Number 1, based on this data, I am asking you to draw production possibilities frontiers for both countries. How many countries? 2, Korea and Japan. Now we will draw that PPF for both countries. What's the maximum number of cars Koreans can produce in 1 day, in 8 hours? It was 8, right? 8 hours. In 8 hours, they are able to produce 8. And what about the number of cars they are able to produce in computers in 8 hours? 32, right? 32. What about Japanese? 24. Maximum number of cars is 24. Maximum number of computers? 48. 48, right? So if we draw the line, the straight line, it will give us PPF for both countries. So Korean PPF and Japanese PPF. Okay? Good. For both countries. So what does this PPF tell us?
The government will not
Beyond. So what if you know that production is somewhere here? What does it mean? Inefficiency of production, right? So if country produces both goods on which goes within this line, it means that they are producing in maximum efficiency. Okay? So if they allocate, for example, 4 hours of their time, so which means Koreans are able to produce 4 cars, while in terms of computers, 16. If Japanese do the same, so they're able to produce 12 cars and 24 computers. Good? It's very clear, I think. Very clear. So, identify, second question, which country has absolute advantage in terms of producing cars and computers? Japan. If you can see the cars, Japan has absolute advantage. Why? Using that input resource. What is input now?
Time.
Time, 8 hours. They are able to produce 3 times more, right? What about in terms of computers? Again, using that 8 hours, they are able to produce 16 pieces more compared to Koreans. Okay? So now they have absolute advantage. So according to Adam Smith, right? Which means he said, if it's the case, so the Japanese, they don't have to trade with Koreans because they have absolute advantage. Right? Good. Third one. Which country has comparative advantage in producing cars? In producing cars.
Korea.
So, what was the formula for comparative advantage? If you want to find comparative advantage, okay, let's say for Korea, in terms of production of cars. So we said, the formula is, we want to produce, okay? If we want to produce something, then we have to give up. If we want to produce one good, we have to give up the other good. So which is, then we have to give up another good. So if we want to produce more computers, we have to give up cars. Okay? So now we are talking about we want to produce cars. Where if we spend entire time, we are able to produce 8, right? So and we have to give up 32 computers. So which means it's equal to 4. What does this 4 tell us?
Opportunity cost of one car is 4 computers.
Yes, which means if we wanted to produce one car, we have to give up 4 computers. Sacrifice. Okay? So let's do it for Japan. If we do for Japan, okay, that in terms of car production, we want to produce, they want to produce only cars, which is 24, yes? And give up 48 computers, which is equal to 2. So now this is the opportunity cost, which tells us Japanese, if they want to produce one car, they only give up 2 computers. Who has low opportunity cost? Japan. So according to David Ricardo, right, if it's the case like this, so now Japanese should spend more time to produce cars because they have comparative advantage. So next one, now we found the answer is Japan. And which country has comparative advantage in terms of producing computers?
Korea.
So it's definitely Korea. So now comparative advantage of Korea in terms of computer manufacturing, yes. So they want to produce. Yeah, I hope you will be able to find a seat somewhere. Maybe there is no seat available right now. Yeah, maybe they can share with you. Okay. So now, in terms of computers, so they are able to produce 32 computers, and they give up 8 cars, which is equal to 1/4. If we do the same calculation of comparative advantage for Japan in terms of production of computers, they want to produce 48 computers and give up 24 cars, which is equal to 1/2. So which country has comparative advantage? Korea, because their opportunity cost is lower. Alright? So now if it's the case, it's the best thing, if Koreans, they emphasize more on computer production, while Japanese emphasize more on car manufacturing. Okay? I say it's clear. Right? So now here's the question. So now, please just ignore this part. Okay, this is another one. Just first let's talk about the first one. So now, after checking for this comparative advantage, Japanese, they are making an offer, right? Offer for Koreans. So the Koreans, we have a deal we have a deal. We know that if these two countries, if they don't trade, their maximum, now here is PPF is now consumption possibilities from there too, right? If they don't trade the maximum they can consume is here. They cannot go beyond. So now Japanese, they found a way to increase their consumption and they made a deal. Okay, the Koreans, if you agree to exchange, okay, and if you agree to produce only computers, okay, only computers, and exchange 15 of your computers with our 5 cars, we would be very happy. All right? So which means that, so the deal is, so we will provide you 5 cars. If you don't produce any car, do not produce, and produce only 32 computers. And in exchange, we want only 15 computers. Okay? So which means, if they get it, so they will have one additional car, yes, and one additional computer. So it is the deal. And they explained, okay, if you agree, then we will spend 6 hours for producing cars. In 6 hours, how many cars they are able to produce? 18, right? In 1 hour, they are producing 3 cars, so in 18. In 2 hours, which is remaining, they are going to produce computers, which is 12, right? So, and they agreed. So they would like to give 5 cars to them, right? 5 cars is given to Koreans, yes. How many left for Japanese? 13. And in exchange, how many computers do they request? 15. So now they are already producing 12 plus 15. So which will become 27, right? 27, additional 15. So which means if these Korean producers agree, so both nations they will gain. Now Japanese are gaining even more, plus 1 car, plus 3 computers. Okay? So good. Now you pay attention to this part. But Koreans strictly bargained with Japanese and agreed to offer only 12 computers in exchange for 5 cars. Do you understand? They offered, we are willing to exchange our 5 cars with 15. But now they are saying no. If you agree, we will provide you with only 12 cars. Now let's check it. If it's 12, in the case of 12, what will happen? Which means now if they give 5, right? They are giving 12. How many left for them? 20, right? 20 cars left for them. So which means their PPF will be even, their consumption is even greater. Plus 1 car, plus 4 computers. What about Japanese case? They are giving 5, they have 13, and they are receiving 12. 24, right? 24, which means still, that the point is beyond PPF line, but the gain for that is only plus 1, but there is no gain from computer. Same. Okay? Same. So now, I think you understood why Koreans did it. Let's suppose that, historically, Japanese, there was a war in early 19th century, in 1910. Japanese, they occupied Korean peninsula, yes, and there were lots of, bad things happen, and still, Korean nation, Korean people, they dislike Japanese because of those historical events. Let's suppose at least they acted like this, Koreans, because they are offering, it's our offer. Whether they accept it or not, it's up to them. They may say, we don't want. All right? Now, because they have bargaining power, now Japanese, they are offering only 12. The question. Find out whether the Japanese should agree with such a deal. Should Japanese agree?
No. beyond the frontier, so they might agree.
Still they are gaining.
They are gaining.
Who is happier?
Korean.
So according to you, it's Koreans, right? So according to me, Japanese are more happier. Okay? Because they accepted this deal. Now, in this case, Japanese will be celebrating this agreement. Okay? Why? I will explain.
Export is less than import.
Look, what do you think? What will be the Japanese long-term strategy to receive more computers? They agreed, yes, for 12 cars. And they agreed not to produce any cars. Do you understand? Japanese will wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, okay? And they will see that, that car industry entirely disappeared. There is no car industry. They will wait until that point. Before when they made the deal, this, I think you know what this means, right? What is this one? Ace, or we call it in Russian tuz. At first, that ace the Koreans had that ace in their hands. They will wait 5-10 years, then this ace will move to their hands. Okay, now it's time for them. So what will they say? After 10 years, once car industry completely disappeared, they are only producing computers, which means Koreans are 100% dependent on Japanese cars. Are they 100% dependent on their computers? No, because they're still producing. Okay? So what will happen then? Japanese, the leader, they will say, the dear Korean producers, at that time, 10 years ago, one of our, illiterate leaders, he agreed for such a deal, but today we don't think that it's a good deal for us. So we changed our mind. Therefore, we want you to give us 20 computers for our 5 cars. We still supply with 5, and you should give us 20. Will they agree? They will agree. Okay? No choice. If they request 25, they will agree. 30, they will agree. Okay? Because now they are totally dependent. So it means, first, there was a trade issue. Do you understand? Unfair trade. Because they're Korean, they requested more. And now that unfair trade is, they agree, which causes trade dispute. Okay, this is trade issue. I think it's clear for you. All right. So in this case, what's the conclusion from this exercise? It means that we don't have to give up our any industry. Doesn't matter if in Uzbekistan we have some industry which is not non-efficient at all. Still, we should keep it. Even though it's small, we should keep it. Do you understand? For example, when the car industry disappeared, once they, Japanese started unfair trade, what will they do? They again will start their car manufacturing, which means they will start it from scratch. No absolute advantage, no comparative advantage. It will take many years again to get the same level of production. Okay? Good. I think it's clear for you. And very important exercise. Discussion 1, now we will divide, okay, now we have only 2 groups, all right? 2 groups, group A, group B. We talked about trade policies, right? Some countries, they follow inward-looking trade policy. Some, they follow outward-looking trade policies. So now group A, please make discussions, okay? And you tell me why inward-looking trade policy is good. And you say why outward-looking trade policy is good. Once you say those good sides, then you have to criticize each other. Then you should tell me it's not good policy because of those reasons. Okay? I think 2 minutes will be more than sufficient. I know we are very good at discussion. Okay, I hope the discussions are over after such hard discussions here. Alright. So group A, who can tell me the positive sides and the good sides of inward-looking trade policy? How?
As a definition of inward-looking trade policy is to focusing on the domestic industries, building some kind of industries, and that's why in this case
Substituting those foreign goods with domestically produced goods,
Yes.
which means less import. If you are less importing, then our payment of balance will, the deficit will be less. Okay. Good. Any other benefits?
And less dependency on foreign countries.
How is it possible? So less dependency on foreign countries.
By putting tariffs, they protect their production, both domestic production.
Dependency. Okay. So but when we say dependency, if something goes wrong, like in the case of China and Korea, Japanese, they can, because of some dispute, just immediately stop supporting, okay? But in inward-looking trade policy, which means they try to minimize importing, okay? Which means they encourage to develop car industry, not to be dependent. Do you understand? Okay, good. Another? What about outward-looking trade policy? Why do you think it's good?
It creates employment. When firms come and invest all options in fair companies in our country, it creates employment for those who are within the country.
Okay. So outward-looking trade policy is just completely vice versa of inward, right? Which means free trade is supported, right? As she said, investment is very welcomed. Oh, investors welcome such country. They like it. So which creates more jobs. Okay, good. And another?
Increase in aggregate demand.
It increases aggregate demand. How?
Because now you are trading freely, there is no tariffs, boundaries. It means you will have wider range of choices in this case.
When we say increasing aggregate demand, before international trade, we were, our customers were only domestic customers. When it's free international trade, we have foreign customers too, who are buying more. Okay? Good. Any other?
Opportunity for
Opportunity for
competition.
competitiveness.
Yes.
Okay? If you live with the same way of life, you don't change. But when there is free, open competition, free trade, okay? Which means that if you want to survive in the global market, you have to be more competitive. Alright? Korea, Japan, or all other developed countries, because they support free trade, they try to be, more competitive, not to lose their market share.
And you can learn from your opponents in this case.
By researching.
Research and development.
Yes, that's another. Yes, okay? You learn from others, okay, with trade. Good.
And here we know trade issues like issue of tariffs. Other countries might think that it's like a bad thing. Why did you do this thing? And trade issue disputes.
It may lead to trade issues, okay? So, dear Group A students, why do you think that inward-looking trade policy is bad? What other, outward-looking trade policy. Why do you think it's, it has, what kind of disadvantages does it have?
because it hits local production. But when you open the market, other companies will come and you will lose your industry.
Good. So which means if we open, right, let's consider Uzbekistan, our country's case, with China. We support 100% free trade. Then you just if we agree for that, then you just totally forget of about our cartel or all many industries, because we are not ready to compete with them, because they have both absolute advantage in most of them and comparative advantage. All right. So therefore, outward-looking trade policy, if it's too open, all right, regarding it does not give opportunity for supporting infant industries. Okay. Japan's, for example, that Toyota making countries or companies, or those electronic goods making those industries, they became so competitive. First of all, with the support of government at the beginning. Okay, they made the infant industry stronger. Okay, what about you? What do you think? Why would you trade policy? Environmental issues is regarding to your
Less investment.
Less investment is one issue, because investors, they don't like trade barriers. Yes, which is bad thing. Okay, any other thing?
No competition.
No competition, which develops monopoly issues, right? If those monopolists are selfish, yes, and think only about themselves, they will not be working on themselves and improving goods and services.
Inefficient allocation of resources.
Right, okay. Here, because of those high tariffs, we are paying higher price for the same good. Okay, thank you very much for the discussion. Now, we have exercise 2, which is, please listen very carefully, very important, okay? Very important. We talked about tariff issues, right? So now we will see the impact of tariffs on welfare, on global welfare. Okay? Good. So now let's suppose, now we are talking about good X, right? Suppose country A imposes 50% tariff on foreign good X in order to support domestic X food producer. I think it's clear. So let's suppose that good X is car in terms of Uzbekistan, all right? GM. Car. And this curve is demand curve. Demand for cars in Uzbekistan. This is supply of cars in Uzbekistan. Okay? Our GM is able to supply within this line. Straight line. Okay. Let's suppose that the equilibrium price, if Uzbekistan do not trade with any countries, okay? Let's say we are only buying from Uzbek cars, only here. It is $150, let's suppose. Okay, the $150 is the equilibrium price, and with this amount, for this price, Uzbek producers are able to produce, let's suppose, 200 cars. They would supply, right? So, if they, let's say, if the price is $100, are they able to supply 200 cars? No. They are not able to supply, okay? Because there is marginal production. Right? To produce more, you have to charge more. Or each additional production costs something else. Okay? So let's say if the price is $100, Uzbekistan, the Uzbek GM is able only to produce 100 cars only, let's suppose. Okay? Only 100 cars. Oh, let me draw this curve a bit nicer. So it will lose 100 actually. Then it should be somewhere here, right? So let's say it looks like this. at this price, they're able to produce. So let's suppose in Uzbekistan, there is free trade. There is no tariffs. No tariffs, just suppose. And price, global price for cars is $100. Okay? So at this price, what about, because the demand is over here, right? Let's suppose which is 300 at this price. How many cars that our GM is producing? 100, right? What about the remaining? 200 cars are coming from foreign producers, okay? Foreign producers. And the price is 100. Okay? This is foreign producer share. This is Uzbek's share in our domestic market. Any questions regarding this one? I see no questions, okay? So now it was the situation like this. Then, let's say Uzbek government decided to increase market share of GM. And they try to support GM. To support them, if they want to increase. And here we are saying that, look, moreover, assume that people prefer domestically produced goods if there is not price difference. Do you understand? Let's say there are millions of types of cars with the same car in Uzbekistan. And Uzbeks, if the price, is the same, they prefer Uzbek cars. Nationalism, or patriotism. BMW, I don't need it, it's not made in Uzbekistan, okay, so I like our Uzbek one. Alright, it's like people think that way, let's suppose. So now at this time, okay, they are buying more foreign cars because it's not available from Uzbekistan. They are able only to produce 100. Those 100 people who are lucky, they were able to buy those. The remaining, they are buying from Russia or from somewhere else. Okay. So then they want to increase production. To increase production, what should be done? The prices also have to be higher because it's a supply curve, right? So now let's suppose Uzbek government, they impose 50% tariff. They made the price of foreign car, if you want to buy, $150. Okay? If you want to buy. So what kind of opportunity now GM has? Because the price is higher, right? Now they can charge higher price and increase production. Do you understand? Up to this point. Do you understand? Up to this point, 200. We said that Uzbek people prefer Uzbek cars. So now it's equilibrium point. This is the demand, maximum demand, it's needed at this price. So now, domestic and foreign ex good producers. After imposing tariff, did our GM lose or gain? Gain, right? Because now they are exporting 100 extra cars. Or selling, sorry, not importing, exporting, but selling here. Good. What about, let's say, Russian producers who were selling 200? They lost entire market share. They lost. Because if the price is this much, demand is this much, it's available from Uzbekistan, 200 cars are supplied. Okay? So now, Russian car makers, they lost their market share, total, 200 loss. Do you understand? Okay, good. So now here is, the question is, that the most important one is, find the welfare loss caused by the import tariffs. Welfare loss. This artificial price increase, okay, causes negatively on welfare. Why? How is it? Now there are two losses here. First one is this triangle. And the second loss is this triangle. Okay, this one. Why do we call it as loss? First one, welfare loss. This price increase is the actual price of the car is used to be 100, yes, and it was artificially increased to 150 because of tariff, which means now people are paying $50 more for each car. All right. Why are they paying more? Because Russian efficient production they were supplying is now replaced by Uzbek non-efficient production. If they want to produce 100 more, they are not able to produce with $100. Do you understand? While Russians are able. Do you understand? So now Russians, if Uzbeks now, if they want to increase it, they must increase price, which will cost much higher. So it means non-efficient production. Do you understand? Non-efficient production is given with this left side triangle. What about this triangle? Why do we call it as loss? It is dead weight loss. Why dead weight loss? When the price was $100, right? People, what was the level of consumption of cars? 300, right? So now, after increasing prices, right? Now there are 100 people, okay, who actually want car for this price. Because of this artificial price increase with tariffs, they are not able to buy. They are just losing the enjoyment of life, driving car. So therefore we call it just dead weight loss. They are losing out of nowhere. Do you understand? So if you want to calculate it, it's so easy. Mathematically you can do it. Okay, if you are asked to calculate it, so with the height is 50, right? The price increase by $50. The quantity is 100. We know. So which means if you want to that welfare loss in terms of inefficient production is equal to 1/2, right? Times the height of the triangle, which is $50. And the quantity, right, which is 100, it gives us 2,500. It is loss. Okay? It is loss. They are able, GM now is able to produce 100 extra because we are paying $50 extra, which we don't like to pay. It's loss for us. Okay? Good. What about this dead weight loss? Second. Dead weight loss, okay? Again, 1/2. People are buying less, 100, yes. And this is 50, which is equal to, again, people are not paying this money here, right? They are not paying, but still it is considered, because they're giving up their demand. They are not buying, it's still welfare loss. So the total welfare loss is now 5,000. These two triangles. Do you understand? So this is welfare loss because of tariff. Okay, because of tariff.
One question.
Yeah.
Those 100, they can still buy Russian cars, yes?
Who? This
those
one?
level.
No.
This level.
Because the price is 150. Because it's demand curve. If demand, if the demand is if 100, they're able to buy only 200. Okay? Is it clear? It's very important exercise. Okay? It's very important exercise. Okay, if you got the point, so here, alright, those things you can see later. Alright, good. So now I will erase this graph. If you want to take a picture, please take it.
So 100 people cannot buy the cars, right?
Yes. So, they are just giving up their desire. They want, but they are not able. Okay, this is loss for them. These 100 people, they wanted to buy, okay? But because of this artificial price increase, they are not able. Deadweight loss. Okay? Good. Now we consider the case of tariff, right? The effect of tariff. So now we will consider the effect of subsidy. How does it affect on this, on welfare loss? So again, consider the same case that car. Again, it's the demand curve for cars. This is the demand curve, supply curve for cars. Good. So that international price, okay, international price for cars is $100. Again, Uzbek people, Uzbek producers, they are able to supply 100, and the rest is supplied from, let's say, Russia. Lada cars, okay? And this is supply and demand for cars. So which means in Uzbekistan, people are consuming 300 cars, which means 100 is produced locally, 200 is produced internationally. Okay? Good. So now, government intervenes. All right? And now, government wants GM to increase the supply of cars with the same price. Is GM able to increase its supply with the same price? No. It is maximum possible quantity with this price. Okay? If they supply more, if they want to supply more, they need what? Financial support, which is, possibly available from government. So let's suppose government wants it. Okay, then, all right, we will increase. And let's say government wants it to double production. Okay? All right, if you want to double, so we need that much, for example, financial resources, then it will be sufficient for us to produce more, double. So let's suppose now government provided them with those subsidy, financial resources. Then how will the supply curve change? It will shift to the right, yes? It will shift to the right. Because supply, now we have now new supply curve. It will shift. As a result, for this price, Uzbek producers are able to supply 200 cars. I think it's clear. Yes? Is there any change in price? No. Is there any change in consumption? No. It's the same. People are consuming the same. But the question here is, find the effect of government subsidy on domestic and foreign car producers. Because of government support, now we know that Uzbek people would be willing to buy any number of cars if the price is same. Because the price is same and they're able to produce 200 cars at this price, right? So now they doubled their market share in Uzbekistan, GM. Okay? Now they are selling 100 more. What about foreigners? Russians. So now they lost half of their market share in Uzbekistan. Okay? 100 is gained for GM, 100 is lost for Russians. Okay? I think it's clear. Question, this is the most important one. Find the welfare loss caused by government subsidy. So now in this case, okay, we have only one triangle. This one. Okay? This one. Which we call welfare loss. Naturally, without government's support, GM is able to produce 200 cars with $150, right? But now they are producing 200 cars not increasing the price, but support from the government is given, right? Okay. Why do we call it as welfare laws?
Producers then have to pay back to the government?
The government would use this money for another yes.
Look, government, let's say, supply them with those billions or millions of dollars. Whose money is that?
Citizens.
Our money.
Our money.
Do you understand?
Taxes.
Because that government is given from the budget. It is, the people, we are paying tax, right? And we build that our government budget. So it's given from budget, which means government took one portion of our tax money and just gave them. Do you understand? It's still the same thing. Do you understand? So it's still considered as loss. So this, we call it, again, another deadweight loss, all right? Another deadweight loss, which is called, because it's our tax money. Which means they are non-efficiently producing, still non-efficiently producing, but that non-efficiency is covered by government, okay? Hidden by government. All right, if you calculate it, so again, you can easily find 1/2. The height is given as 50. It's 100, right? Times 50 times 100, which is 200, 2,500. It can be 2,500, $2,500,000. Okay, which government could use for some other good things, building universities, building schools, or making new roads, okay, which we could enjoy. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so now please have only 5 minutes break. Then we will start. No. No, they will still buy. Yeah, they are still buying. But from Russia. From Russia. People in terms of consumption, they are not also different. They are also different. These laws belong from every entire nation. So they were from the nation. So I think with exercise 3 we are done. So this is the welfare laws. So now you have to watch a short video, okay? And I will ask you some questions. It's about trade war between China and US, okay? China and US. Please pay attention.
And now, how this showdown is seen from inside China. The escalating punches and counter-punches are stoking anger and fears there of a trade war that could hit both countries. From Beijing, Special Correspondent Katrina Yu reports.
On the outskirts of Beijing, dinner is served for some of Farmer Young Feli's 800 pigs. China's growing middle class has meant a bigger appetite for meat, but his pigs wouldn't grow or survive without soybean meal, much of which is imported from the US.
Soybean meal is a feed which provides nutritional balance and protein.
And now Farmer Yang could be paying a lot more to feed them, after China announced it would be slapping imports of US soybeans with a 25% tariff. The levy will also be added to more than 100 other American goods, including cars and planes.
China has never given in to external pressure. External pressure will only make Chinese people even more determined.
China is firing back in response to a list of items released by the Trump administration yesterday. President Trump says it's about leveling the playing field.
China is going to end up treating us fairly. For many years they had free rein, they don't have free rein anymore.
The political pressure will be high on President Trump and his base of support in many soybean growing states. And farmers will be hit hard, says Paul Burke, the North Asia Regional Director for the U.S. Soybean Export Council.
It will have a negative impact on the prices that U.S. soybean farmers will receive. And soybean farmers are already just barely getting by on the margins that they're receiving. And anything that would depress that price would have a serious detrimental impact to those farmers.
Putting levies on U.S. soybeans, which are also used to make cooking oil, is a high-stakes move for China as it risks food inflation domestically. Many had believed it would be too sensitive for Beijing to touch, but they were wrong, says economist Jeremy Stevens.
This idea that you can sort of pressure China into different positions, that's proven to not be true. And China isn't afraid to do things that markets struggle to, as I say, metabolize.
But China is quick to remind the US that it threw the first punches, starting with 30% duties on solar panels and washing machines, then the 25% tariffs on imported steel and 10% on aluminium just weeks ago. The move forced Huayang Steel Mill in China's northern Hebei province to shift its strategy of focusing on the American market this year.
The part of our industry which exports to America is facing a big loss. Orders have decreased by at least half.
The measures were Washington's first strike in a battle to address a global trade imbalance. But while exemptions have since been given to US allies, including Canada, Australia, and the European Union, the White House is making sure China continues to feel the pinch. America's trade deficit with China, comprised mostly of computers and other electronics, soared to $375 billion last year, according to US figures, up 8% from 2016. But Chinese analysts like Bian Yongsu of Renmin University say this isn't what these tariffs are really about.
Where there's a political dispute resulting in higher tariffs, the purpose isn't to solve a trade imbalance or trade dispute between China and the US. It's more a release of anger.
Justified anger, according to some. The US has long accused Beijing of unfair trade practices, including relying on state subsidies and stealing intellectual property. American companies operating in China say they're forced to spill tech secrets in order to set up shop.
This is the most important economic relationship in the world. It's important for both countries, and yet it's lopsided. And we need to do something to get a level playing field, and talking for 20 years has not done it. So I guess the administration is saying, let's try something else.
That something else has sparked panic from businesses on both sides of the Pacific. A group of retailers, including Walmart and Macy's, sent a letter to the Trump administration late last month, urging a rethink on extra levies on household items, such as bedding, clothing, and electronics routinely imported from China. While the new tariffs avoid these goods for now, costs will increase for American manufacturers who depend on Chinese machinery and imported parts. Washington's plan targets robotics, new energy vehicles, and telecommunications. It's a tense time for tech companies in Beijing.
This is Beijing's Zhongguancun, an area known as China's Silicon Valley. Many of the companies based here are worried their exports to the US will be affected by these new tariffs. PBS NewsHour approached dozens of these firms for comment, but all of them declined, scared to speak out due to the sensitivity of the climate.
Francis Bede helps Chinese tech startups crack the US market and says American consumers will pay the price for Chinese goods being shut out.
It just means less options at a more cost-effective price. At the end of the day, really, it's going to be the consumers that sort of lose out because they might not be able to get the latest and best technology.
Beijing already slapped $3 billion worth of tariffs on more than 100 American products this week, including fruit and wine.
We have wines for 45 which is really a very good deal.
It's bad news for Beijing-based wine importer Claudia Masuda, who's waiting on an order for 14,000 bottles of Californian red, and will soon find out whether she'll have to foot higher taxes for them.
We do have to see the next container of American wine will arrive on the 6th of April. We will discover it. Of course, we are not happy to pay more tax. Who would be? And at the end of the day, it's also not good for the consumers because they then have to pay even more.
It's not just consumers paying the price for this brewing trade war. As farmers and industry groups deal with the fallout from today's announcement, others are bracing themselves for more possible tit-for-tat measures. But from China, analysts say the message is clear.
The United States is trying to play bad cop to a sort of society that doesn't want to be policed in that way by the United States.
And so far, the escalation is showing no sign of letting up. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Katrina Yu in Beijing.
I hope this video was clear for you. Okay. So if you paid attention to all the details, okay, let me ask you some questions. So in the beginning of the video, right, they are talking about, so it's about trade war between China and the US, right? So first they discuss about the soybean industry. The first question is, who are paying the prices in China? Farmers, okay? Farmers. So I mean, farmers and entire nation. So if they are the pig farms in China, it's totally dependent on American, let's say, soybean, the prices are now 25% higher, which will increase the prices of meat as well. If they don't find any other substitute goods for that soybean, okay? And they are explaining why it's so important because it provides that balanced and that ingredients for pigs. Yeah, okay. What about the U.S.? In the U.S., who is disadvantaged?
Farmers.
Soybean farmers who are producing and selling. Okay. So as we have heard from that the analyst, he's saying that they are barely able to meet the margin. Okay. So which means they are losing a lot. Okay, good. What about the second one? According to them, what are the arguments of the U.S. to blame China for unfair trade? For unfair trade.
Government subsidies.
Government
subsidies.
Subsidies. Yes, that's true. So now that the person who analyzed, another analyst with glasses that you have heard, okay, he said, for 20 years, we tried to negotiate with China, yes, but it doesn't work. So therefore, the Trump's administration, they tried to do something else. And that something else is imposing sanctions, imposing tariffs on Chinese goods. And they're blaming for that subsidies, all right? For example, if you can see let's suppose, and as an example of Huawei phone production, right? Huawei. Huawei phones are very cheap because labor is cheap in this country, and resources are also cheap, okay? And it gives them opportunity to sell more because of that low price opportunity. But now, US is blaming them, let's suppose, for example, I don't know whether it's done with Huawei, okay? Now, Chinese government provides subsidy for these companies, like, let's say, Huawei, okay? If the price of phones are, let's say, $100 on average, they ask them to reduce the price to further $80. Just for the sake of gaining bigger market share in the world. Alright? Why US blaming this? Okay, just, if it's free competition, it's fine. No problem. Don't provide them with subsidy. It's unfair. You understand? They are lowering the prices to 80, not because it's natural price, but it's artificial price decrease. Okay? Do not make them decrease the prices artificially. So that's the reason. Okay? Yeah.
The second one was depreciation of local currency.
Depreciation of local currency. Yeah, it's it's not discussed here much, but it's another one. So therefore, US usually blame US as currency manipulator. They blame China as currency manipulator. Later we will discuss this one if we have a chance. what are the concerns of Walmart, that the biggest department store chain in the US? So as you heard, they sent a letter to Trump's administration concerning what?
Electronics and clothes.
And clothes, okay? So they were asking not to impose tariffs on electronics and clothes. Most probably more than 50% of all those electronic and clothes goods available is from China. Okay. Good. What is the American strategy to compete with Chinese cheap labor? So Lord, now, if American government imposing very high tariff, yes, it means that Chinese, they will not be able to sell their goods more, right? Good. And Chinese also retaliating, imposing high tariffs, which Americans are not able to sell to China. Do you understand? So now what else now do they, well, they still have to compete in terms of other countries. They have to sell their goods more. American, they want to get bigger market share. Chinese, they want to also get bigger market share. But we know that in China, they have one very good opportunity, very low, cheap labor cost, okay? So they're giving some explanation. How are they going to compete with that labor? Based on robotics, okay? Robotics. So they want to develop those robots, which is, they are able to substitute hundreds of workers with less cheaper, right? Okay? I think it's clear. So now discussion 3. I hope you reviewed lecture materials, okay? Who can tell me about those strategic trade policies? Okay, the first one. What is profit-shifting strategic trade policy? What is this? Strategic, profit-shifting strategic trade policy. Profit-shifting. It seems that I have to explain it again.
When the government makes a subsidy to the local producer, by this it increases the chances of production among the company.
Okay. So now let's consider the case of, let's suppose, Uzbekistan's car maker, okay, and Russian's car maker. GM, Lada. Let's suppose there are only 2 car makers in the world, all right? And their market share is 50-50. 50% of cars is supplied by Uzbeks, and 50% of cars, the rest is supplied by Russia, all right? If, let's suppose, Uzbekistan, okay, they want to approach that or apply that profit-shifting strategy. So now, it is 50-50, okay, with demand and supply for that one. So now our government, let's say, intervenes, and now he meets with a GM leader. They will say, okay, now we want you to increase your market share in the world. Increase your market share. We want you to make it 80%. 80% of car industry must belong to our producers. And the rest for Russians. It's okay. All right? Are they able, and how can they gain their market share? What's the one way of gaining more, customers?
Less prices,
lower prices, right? Lower price. At this point, are they able to do it? No. But government is willing to give what? Subsidies. So now, okay, if you provide us with that millions of dollars, then we can do it. We can offer, okay? So now, government, they decided to give subsidy. Slowly, market share of GM is growing. 51%, 52, 53, 54, 55, now it's growing, okay? What about Russian side? It's decreasing, okay, it's decreasing. So Lord, the strategy here is, when it reaches 80%, okay, then they will stop subsidy. and again will increase the price. Do you understand? So it's, people's, emotionally, if as I already said, I'm using LG phone, and most probably I will buy again LG phone next time. Once the market share for Uzbek cars is 80%, most probably if the prices again go up, they will be again buying Uzbek cars when there is no price difference, okay? Once they get 80% of the strategic, the share of the market, then again they will make same price. Do you understand? It is strategic. Okay, but what will happen if a country supporting its domestic industry through profit shifting strategy, which is Uzbekistan is doing with GM, right? Is retaliated by the competing party, Russia. For example, they are economically strong than us, yes. If they are seeing that they are losing their market share, they also have very strong analysts, right? They see that market share. Well, something is wrong. Maybe Uzbeks were able to find some kind of good technology that they were able to reduce, or they found some other resources, right? But when they check, they find out that it is government subsidizing, right? Is it fair trade? No. And then what will happen? Most probably, okay, Russian government, okay, if they're doing it, so then we will do too. For example, the price of car at this point was $100, right? With the help of government, they made it $90. So Russian, they are retaliating, they want to punish, they will make it $80. Okay? Because they have to keep at least 50%, they will make it 80 then. They are still angry, they will make it 70. Then they will make it 70, which means the price will go down. Do you understand? We are, some other country people, bystanders, they will be very happy because prices are going down, but Uzbekistan and Russia, they will lose. It's artificial decrease, okay? And you will see after a few months, they will get tired from this one, they see, they will come together, sit in one table, okay, and negotiate. I'm very sorry, we are very sorry, okay, both sides. We did it, so just forget about this one, and again they will make it 100. Okay? Good. And there is second strategy, which is learning curve strategy.
It's when government gives a chance to the domestic company to be able to compete, like give these tariffs on other countries.
We are saying learning curve. Understand? Learning curve. Just one case, for example. If we don't, for example, protect our infant industry because they are not able to compete, no one will buy. But now government increases the price because of tariff, so now they have a chance to sell. At the beginning, okay, if you consider that defective goods, because that industry was established, at the beginning, the number of defective goods will be relatively higher. But over time, because they gain more experience, the number of those defective goods will be reduced, which means they are becoming more competitive. Do you understand? And they gain more knowledge, and within this time, because government gave them the opportunity to sell, they will be, coming out with new design, blah blah blah. Which Toyota, for example, they went through that process. When after 5 or 10 years, when GM is ready to compete, then the tariff will be removed, or it will be lowered to the minimum, okay? So they will be called learning curve. By learning, government gives opportunity to learn, to become competitive, okay? Good. So again, the two, group A, group B, okay? I hope that you remember about the externality, all right? Now you must give, that one example of positive externality in terms of trade, and you have to give one, or I think two, right? Two examples regarding negative externality of international trade. I think you all know about the externality, right? If you don't, I will again remind, if I come to this classroom, and you are all my students, you know, and I really like smoking cigarette and smoking here. Who enjoys? Me, right? What about the others? Suffering. Are you benefiting from my smoking? No, right? But it's negative externality. Or I can come, for example, I can come to the store and buy, you know, super good, you know, perfume. Okay? And just, you know, come because I spent so much money and come to the classroom. Because of that smell, you feel so good. And class mood will be even better. It's positive. So now you apply it to international trade. One minute, I think we'll be sufficient. Okay, I hope you came up with some good ideas. So regarding positive externality, so what are positive externalities, you know, that international trade may cause? Can you give me an example?
Well, I have an example of producing water cleaners, which filter the mud of water and make it clean.
Water cleaners. Okay. So how does it, you know, bring benefit to third parties?
For example, if another factory produces some toxic things and throw this to the water, so another company can just make it, recycle, and make clean water.
Make it clean water. Or just, you know, that itself, that company itself, that, you know, used to be that toxic water.
Yeah.
And that way they put that, you know, filter for water. By doing that one, of course, you know, it's good for that marines in the water, yes, and for people. Yes, okay. All right, good example. Or if you consider, for example, just trading, let's say one businessman, they are bringing some their goods and services here, right? Trading, just movement of migrants here and there. When they come, they came for trade, but they will go to restaurants, yes. They will reserve a hotel. Because they came our tourism industry, the third industry, they will benefit. Okay? But what about negative externality?
Pollution.
Pollution.
Air pollution.
Okay, it is mostly air pollution, yes, okay, because it usually pollutes. There are some, you know, people who has nothing to do with international trade, but they are harmed, okay. Any other? Pardon, social? It affects on culture too, okay. International trade, now we are becoming more westernized people. Right? Loss of cultural norms.
Depletion of resources.
Yes. Okay. Which cannot be replaced. Good. Okay. Did you do your homework? Yes. How many of students?
It's from the slide.
During the lecture, I said when you were sleeping that it is your homework, right? Disadvantages of international trade. I said just read each one and think more broadly. Okay? Good. Number one, for example, impediment in the development of home industries. What does it mean? It's the disadvantage of international trade.
For example, if the country opens the market, others will come and local domestic products will not.
So you know our industries will not be able to compete. For example, if we make 100% free trade with China, yes, the next day they all kick out our domestic industries like Artel and GM from the market. All right. So our domestic will not improve. Good.
So still they're not trying to kind of hire more intelligent people to rise?
It's slowly happening, okay? It will happen, in the early stages it's okay, no problem. So therefore you are studying here, so later on you will improve those things, okay? Our students, good? So, dependence, okay, another thing, right? Dependence, if something goes wrong with the trading partner, as in the case of Korea and Japan, yeah? It will cause a big problem, okay? Many others, I hope you did it. So, danger of international peace, for example. Because of that trade war happening, right? I don't want it happening, okay? Sometimes from the history we know that because of trade dispute, countries, they were engaging in war. Okay? Okay? War. All right, now we are done with our seminar.